Alright, I'm live. I put the dogs outside. Okay. I'm still trying to find the scene in the book I want to read. Hello. I'm gonna give everybody a few minutes. I also need to open my champagne. But, writing 3 books, 4 now, has taught me that I can do hard things but not open champagne bottles. I'm terrified. Can you hear me, Michelle? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Yes, awesome. Oh God, it's got like the hello. It's got like the mushroom top one. Oh God, should I just wait till Michael gets back? Okay, I'm terrified. We'll write a book, publish it. Will not open the champagne. I'm waiting till my husband gets back. You know what? I can accept that my feminism has limits. No, I'm too scared. Also, I'm not sure I'm strong enough. I'm still working on getting my strength back in my hands from this flare. Oh my gosh, there's people. I'm gonna give everybody a few more minutes. Okay, I'm gonna try it again. How do I do it? Do I twist it? I'm good. I thought it would be really fun to like do this on camera and like celebrate, 5 years, and it'll flow out. It'll be really cool. And I am just okay. I'm also officially not strong enough. So cool. That really hurt my hand. Maybe if I had my hand brace, but that doesn't look good on camera. Cool. Hello. What time is it? 5:01. So, I'm trying to find, I was going to read a couple of short scenes. And I'm trying to find the first kiss. There's my hand clench scene, which is a necklace scene. Sorry, I'm just giving everybody a few minutes. Push out with your thumb, but usually you have it under a cloth. It's Prosecco. Sparkling wine. So, I can open like a regular one. Okay, so one time I tried to open a bottle of champagne with a corkscrew wine opener. It was a mess. There was cork everywhere. Do not recommend. I had really strange chapter breaks in my first book, I'm noticing. Did they really not kiss until like chapter 14? Wow. Might just be us. The huge. Yeah, people will join in here in a little while. Can y'all hear Darwin barking? Is he fairly muted? Like, I can't control his barking, but he's outside, so. Okay. Darwin's ridiculous. We took them outside for a little while, like on a walk. Short walk. Fairly muted. Okay, good. Yeah. Unfortunately, I cannot, like, mute the dogs. That would be really nice. Man, I wish I could mute the dogs. the scene, the almost get together scene, and then the attack scene. All right, I'm gonna dive into it because it's about 5 minutes after, and I'll get champagne going when my my bottle opening partner comes back in from his walk. So, all right, so welcome to the Sage's Consort 5-year anniversary, book-iversary, birthday. It almost slipped up on me, right? Because, like, time has no meaning in a pandemic. But then I was like, wait, is it 5 years? And I was like having to do math. And, but yes, it has been 5 years, as officially as of yesterday, since I launched my debut novel. The first edition had a very different cover than what it currently has. And that's a mistake that I made that I'll explain in a little while. But this is the current cover of the Sage's Consort. I think it's beautiful. This is the consort tree. It's 2 intertwined trees. My cover designer had some really cool things where she tied in some of the same colors through the next two books. Just a little bit, especially into the second book. So I really love this. The Sage's Consort. I'm going to start, okay, so how I'm structuring this is I'm going to start with kind of like the story of Elandria, how it came to be, and my reflections on it. I want to do a short reading, and then I'm going to do a Q&A about the book, and then I'll end with another reading. So, also, I say so a lot. I'm nervous. I'm not usually nervous on lives. This is crazy. I really wish that champagne was open. If my husband could hurry back to open the bottle of champagne for me, that'd be fantastic. He's watching. So, the world of Elandria existed in my head for a very, very long time before I started writing it down. People have always asked, like, where do you get your inspiration from? I get my inspiration from insomnia and anxiety, and dealing with whatever is going on in my life at that point in time. I use world building and story crafting therapeutically. And Elandria was no different. I was at a time in my life, and this is a theme that comes through a lot in my writing, is how to overcome powerlessness. And the way I overcome powerlessness is through writing fiction. And I was not happy where I was. I mean, I'd had little bits and pieces of the ideas and the characters for a while, but the actual world itself, the structure of the world itself, the magic within the world itself really came about when I was frustrated in my career as a teacher. I was frustrated by, as I continue to be, by the just general, like, idiocy and lack of compassion that seems to exist in the world. And I wanted to explore that. I wanted to find out how to gain some power when I felt powerless. And I always say that, like, Amorous is who I would love to be, but Quinn was really, Quinn's my baby. Quinn is how I explored these ideas in the first book. Later on, Amorous really gave me some great insight into myself. And I started writing because I was getting my ass kicked by my boss the year before when this story started forming. And I was a great teacher. And so this person, I was really frustrated that this person who was very verbally abusive and intimidating, was also, like, trying to tell me how to teach when she knew nothing about my subject matter. I like, there seemed to be no respect for the fact that I was the subject matter expert, therefore, and the pedagogical expert on that subject. And then just kind of watching, I mean, this was, 2015, 2016, and we all know what happened in the 2016 election, was seeing this rise of people that were just using fear and hate and really bad logic. I mean, this was the time that fake news became a phrase because of, our dear past president. And that was scary. I was like, there are these people who are knowingly using lies to control this world and oppress people. And there's, lots of themes of oppression. And class, the dangers of patriarchal religions, which always seems to get explored in my writing. And so it was a frustration that this world came from. And the first book, Amorous, like I'm well aware that she reads as a Mary Sue. That's because to Quinn she was, and that was why I had someone ask me once, like, if this is a story about a strong woman, why did you write most of it from Quinn's perspective? And that was a really good question, and it was because I wanted Quinn to see Amorous through a lens, and I wanted him to uncover that she was more than just this perfect woman. I mean, she's the perfect woman for Quinn, but of course, there's my champagne. Thank you. All right, we're going to celebrate now. But I originally structured the world, the scholars, to have so much power because originally they were born, it was very ableist. And this was what I was talking about last night, if you watched my stories. It was very ableist and classist, and it came from a place of frustration, that I put this scholar tier as the highest tier in society. And that is how I thought it would last. It was supposed to be a standalone romance. I realized there wasn't enough drive to the plot. The NaNoWriMo forums, somebody was having the same question. Like, I've basically created my perfect world. There's a romance, but I need more plot. And someone said, if you can hear my child growling, he is a baby dragon. And that's just what he does. And so someone asked and said, okay, well, what would make what would threaten your perfect world? What would make it less perfect? And that's when Elandria became less of my therapeutic escape and more of a story. And what would threaten it would be not a lack of intelligence, but a power dynamic based on bigotry and hate and sexism and racism. Much like our real world. That's the only thing keeping our world from being perfect, right? Is hate and power issues. And so the plot developed from there. As I wrote the series, it ended up in a very different place after the war, and I was just going to have the new king, and I was like, well, we can't go back to the status quo. But it wasn't me who said that, it was my characters, and it made me really evaluate, and it was Quinn, my sweet, lovely Quinn, who was like, it was the class differences and us holding ourselves above each other that led us to this problem in the first place. And the story really morphed. Yes, it did. What's the matter? The story really morphed into any sort of class differences, they're exactly the same. Somebody's going to feel oppressed and downtrodden, and maybe the best way to encourage people not to hate is to actually try to see them and understand why they feel powerless and why they need to gain power by stepping on other people. And So I grew a lot as a person through those stories, and it's hard for me to admit that the world started as this horribly ableist sort of perfect world, and turns out that wasn't my perfect world at all. So I learned a lot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and toast to 5 years. If you're drinking, please join me. So to Elandria, and the lessons that I learned along the way, and the inner magic that I found, much like my characters. So, hope you're drinking. Water's fine. I don't care. You can toast with anything, as long as the spirit's there. All right, and I closed out of that page. So, let's go back to one of my favorite scenes in the romance part of my fantasy romance, which is at the ball, right before the climax of the story. Quinn and Amorous have had a lot of tension building, and Quinn is ready. He's really getting ready to just like, I'm tired of this. Like, I want to be with you. He's really finding himself. And, you know, I mean, he's a beta hero as far as romance goes. And he's ready to take the reins here. So where should I start? So Quinn is getting ready for the king's birthday celebration in their usual rooms at the palace. He pulled his new silk shirt over his head, a bright blue in honor of the king. He put on his scholar's pendant and combed his hair, wondering what Amorous would be wearing tonight. She did look exquisite in blue, but she looked exquisite in everything. And nothing, he smiled to himself. Get a grip, Quinn. He smacked his face in reprimand and tried to push the image of Amorous in her bed out of his head. That was a whole other scene, but there were spoilers, so I couldn't show that. A knock on his door made his heart leap. He crossed the room a little too quickly and flung open the door. He gasped in shock at the wonder standing before him. Oh, my lady sage, he murmured, because in this instant she deserved to be worshipped. Amorous looked ethereal. A layer of thin sapphire tulle stretched over her bosom and opened over a sheath of silk in shades of lavender and violet. Her sleeves began in the middle of her arm, leaving her soft shoulders bare and draped to the floor like purple and blue wings. An elaborate belt of thin gold decorated with sapphire teardrops accentuated her waist. Her beauty was nothing short of mythical. She grinned and twirled around so he could see the back of her dress. The sapphire fit loosely under the gold belt. Half of her thick brown hair cascaded over her back. The rest lay braided around her diadem. Do you like it? She asked. It's new. You look like a dream. A very good dream. She grinned. Can you help me with my necklace? She held up a gold choker lined with sapphire gems that matched her belt. Quinn swallowed and nodded. She turned her back to him again and swept her hair into her hands. She smelled of roses and honey, and Quinn's brain grew foggy. He placed the necklace around her neck and slowly fastened it, breathing in her scent. He could not help himself and ran one hand over her bare shoulder. She shivered. He touched his lips to her shoulder softly. Quinn, she breathed and turned to face him. She gazed up into his big brown eyes, her breast heavy. All finished, he whispered. She said nothing, but her eyes danced with conflicted desire. Another door down the hall opened, forcing them both back to reality. Words hung unspoken in the air between them. Well, let's go. She turned to walk toward the party, and Quinn followed her down the stairs without a word. So they were almost ready to be together, and then a little while later they danced, and who doesn't love a dance? The music changed to a waltz, and he placed a hand on her waist. She shivered, but followed his steps without a word. He spun her on the floor once, her dress twirling in blue and purple. And she met his eyes again. Earlier in the corridor, her voice trailed. He thought back to his impulsive kiss of her shoulder. I'm not going to apologize this time, Amorous. He spun her again. I don't want you to apologize. I want you. She was interrupted by a tap on her shoulder. A parliament minister cut in, and it would be rude for her to refuse. She gave Quinn an apologetic look as he left the dance floor. He wandered toward the back wall, watching her dance with other people. What was she going to say to him? He had thought of Jack's advice earlier. He would not let this conversation go. He would address it later, after the party. But then shit happens. It goes down. So, which we will read Amorous' total badassery in a little while. I love it. So, I am going to do a Q&A about Elandria, about the Sage's Consort, about the other two books, whatever you want to know about me as a writer or a person, I guess. I don't know. Ask me anything! Raina's here. Hi, Raina. Anybody? So the reason that the first edition had a different cover is because I was a new baby indie author. And I really liked my first cover, although I wish I'd done matte instead of gloss. And the formatting was terrible because I did it myself. But the actual cover itself looked great, and I really liked the artist. But I got the book cover on Fiverr. And it was... she was great. And then she deleted her Fiverr account, and I knew her username, and that she was either in Germany or America, and I scoured the internet trying to find this person. Could not. Messaged Fiverr. And this was, a couple years later, to get the cover for the next book to match it. Because I didn't have, the vector files. I only have the delivery file, which was frustrating. So I learned my lesson, and I wanted a matching set. They're mostly matching that was another issue. But, so the binding on the third book, the font is a little different. That was a different issue. But they mostly match. So I found an artist who does painting, and she makes... beautiful books. So that was fun. That's why they're different. Okay, how did I come up with the name Elandria? I don't particularly remember. I remember when I finally did. I was looking at the map. I had the map made years before there was a story. I knew exactly where everything was and the place names. Elandria, it's the... Damn it, Rosalind. I wanted land, something about land or earth, because it's the earth magic was in there. And then after I published it, a former coworker said that he kept pronouncing it Elandria, which bothered me because we had this student who was... I also had a really great student named Elandra, so I shouldn't have that stigma, but I was like, oh god, that sounds too much like Elandria, and man, that was one of those students. Whew. That you will always remember, and not necessarily for pleasant reasons. Is Quinn inspired by anybody? His physical appearance is definitely inspired by a particular couple of people that I knew. I've noticed, though, as I've been reading more of these kind of beta heroes, these really awkward, shy, not quite confident, that they all tend to be described as relatively the same. So I find that really interesting, and now I want to write a beta hero that is not tall, and doesn't have a runner's body, and doesn't have brown or blonde hair. So there's a type for the beta heroes. His personality is based on lots of people. Some of his mannerisms I've pulled directly from people. Amorous and Quinn's relationship, and I have a post planned later this month, a blog post, that Amorous and Quinn's relationship pulls really heavily from my own relationship, and they're like, they're the way they communicate, the way they're very equal footing partners, the open communication between them, so their relationship, all of the healthy relationships in my writing pull very heavily from my own relationship and the amount of work that goes into it. And I really explore, they've got NRE, New Relationship Energy, by the end of the Sage's Consort. And I really explore the depths of their relationship in book 2. And, she's asked him to be her partner, like politically, magically, and, personally, her life partner. And like, yeah, this is great. I mean, we're so in love. And then, things aren't always that easy. They're especially not easy when there's like a war forming in your country and you're the two most powerful people. So, things get hard in book 2. Yeah. But yeah, I think when I sent my description to Lena Amarego, who did my character art, I should reshare that, that I kind of sent her a couple images, but one of them was like Brad from Rocky Horror Picture Show was kind of one of the physical inspirations. It was like a little bit of this, but like different. Okay, did I always know the Sage's Consort would be a trilogy? No, it told me it was going to be a trilogy. It was going to be wrapped up nice and neat in one book. And then it was like, there's got to be a war. No, I had no control over that. It was originally just supposed to be a standalone romance, and then the plot became a little too political intrigue subversive to wrap up nicely. So by the end of the first book, by the end of writing the first book, I knew it would be a trilogy. That is not how it started, though. My favorite thing about their relationship, I love that Amorous is a complete slob. She's never really had to clean up after herself. She's chaotic. Her desk is always a mess. She leaves things everywhere. And Quinn is like a horrible neat freak. It's to manage his anxiety. And she kind of like deals with him like he's ridiculous when he's like, freaking clean up after yourself. You're a grown-ass woman. The most powerful woman in the world. Can you clean up after yourself? I think it's a fun little like quirk of their relationship that I put in there. For the record, like, I'm a slob, but like I'm not married to a neat freak. Neither of us are neat freaks. We're trying to be better, but but yeah, that was it just struck me as Quinn would be a neat freak and Amorous can't be can't be bothered with it. So yeah. I keep drinking. I'm getting Taco Diner after this, and I'm really excited. If I were to write a spinoff, I was thinking about that today. I have lots of ideas about about future books in the Elandria world. But they're mostly short story ideas for now. I think if I sat down, I could probably come up with a plot one. Elaine and Raymond end up together because good friends should always end up with each other's exes. It's totally normal. Their future looks very good, but it's funny you asked that because I was thinking about writing a spinoff about them and what would that look like, because I want to see what that looks like in the new Elandria. I also I want Jack to have a happily ever after because he deserves it. Because I totally made that like tragic queer love story mistake. That's kind of cringy in the first book. But I am not. I'm not sure who he's going to end up with. It will definitely be multiple partners because he's Jack. But I want to do that. I want to explore kind of the future of the school that Quinn starts at the end of the third book. Originally, I had planned to do a spin-off series about Amorous and Quinn's daughter, and I wanted to explore the world further, like beyond the bounds of Elandria, and what that means for Earth magic, and everything. And then I also had the idea, it's in my never-ending list of notes, of like a future Elandria. Like, what does Elandria look like 1,000 years in the future? Which I think would be fascinating. And then I get into like science fantasy, which is not my comfort zone. So the question is, the answer is I have no idea. I have tons of ideas. None of them are developed. And I'm not ready to return to Elandria just yet. But Elaine and Raymond, they definitely have they gotta hit some bumps in the road. They're king and queen. But, they will have a happily ever after for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. I'm going to read the, if there's more questions, I will gladly answer them. I love talking about my characters. They are my babies. Amorous' badassery. Where should I start? All right, so Amorous has been kidnapped. She was drugged. And she's in a lot of pain, but she's not one to just accept it. So she has deduced that of where she is because she has, a lot of knowledge of the land, of the magic. All right. She inched her way up, continually checking to make sure none of the kidnappers looked her way. She hoisted herself over the edge of the wagon and dropped to the ground. She had to fight off the urge to cry in pain. She felt a large bruise across her abdomen, likely where the one man had kicked her. She folded over in pain behind the wagon wheel. "Please don't see me," she wailed. She focused on pulling the magic from the earth. Though the pain still made her want to cry, she could feel her strength returning. She began to crawl toward the wood, filling herself with the gift of the earth. Power surged through her veins. She stood and began to run. Just a little further, she thought. "Hey, come back here!" She continued to run, but the men were faster. The gruff man reached her first and threw her to the ground and kicked her away. She cried out in agony. She had to fight back. She tried to crawl away, but he pulled her hair and dragged her backward. "Come back, you whore!" Amorous tried to focus. The ground began to shake. "Don't let her cast a spell," another called. "Don't let her speak." They're stupid. "She's not speaking," the gruff man yelled back. He kicked her again. Clouds rushed into the area and the sky turned dark. Thunder rumbled. Amorous pulled away as the man looked up at the sky that had previously been blue. Now was her chance. She made the earth shake hard and knocked him to his feet. She held out a hand and green streams of magic flowed from her fingertips. The grass began to grow rapidly, lashing him to the ground like ropes. He screamed, and the others stopped running as they watched their friend struggle. The grass bound his legs and his chest. Then it grew over his neck, suffocating him. He could no longer scream. Amorous watched as the man turned purple, eyes bulging from his ugly face. She did not stop the grass until he was dead. The youngest of the men, Blake, screamed and ran the opposite direction. The other two men started toward Amorous. She focused on the earth again, and the ground split, forming a deep crevice. One of the men caught his leg in the crack, and she could hear the bone in his leg snap. She cried out in pain. The other man, the leader, turned toward him, stunned. Amaris stood and raised her hand to the sky. A bolt of lightning flashed and struck the man where he lay with his leg broken, screaming in pain. He screamed one last time before he fell silent. His clothes smoked and he fell forward, legs still stuck. His eyes were open and red welts spread across his face. The last man turned to face her, a determined anger on his face. Amaris ran toward the woods. She could feel her strength draining and tried to pull more magic from the earth as her feet pounded hard against the ground. The man drew nearer. She reached the trees, but this was not a wood for hiding, and she had no strength to continue running. She froze, unsure what to do next. "I'll kill you, you demon bitch." Amaris's eyes searched her surroundings and caught on a tree. The man would run straight past it. She took 2 steps nearer and focused all her energy on that tree. "Please," she begged silently. The man approached. She had to time this perfectly. She steadied her breathing. The man slowed, unsure why Amaris stood still. He was wary and took his steps carefully to avoid snapping his legs in any more earthquake cracks. Amaris stood between the trees, her arms raised, pointed at the tree next to the man, and magic streamed from her hands again. He stopped completely and looked up. As he did, a branch dropped toward him. From the branch, a vine wrapped itself around the man's neck. He screamed. Amaris raised her arms to the sky. The branch snapped back to its heightened position. She heard a crack. The evil man's neck had snapped. He dangled in the air, the vine a noose. Amaris collapsed on the forest floor. I love Amaris. She didn't know she could do that. She didn't know she was capable of that. No one really did, but, desperate times. You can find your inner magic. That is all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me for my 5-year book birthday of The Sage's Consort. I will be posting this on my feed. Yeah, she is awesome. God, she's awesome. We all want to be Amaris. I will be posting this on my feed to check the replay once it's ready. And then also, if you haven't read The Sage's Consort, if you click the link in my bio, you can subscribe and you get the entire ebook for free. You can get it in Mobi, EPUB, or PDF format, whatever your preferred e-reader app is. So all you have to do is give me your email address and sign up. And I don't send a lot of emails because I really hate email marketing. So yes. So please, if you want to read the first book, link in my bio, subscribe, and you get the whole thing for free, the whole ebook. And yeah, thank you for joining me. This is a huge deal. I'm really excited. Half a decade, like 5 years sounds great, but then you say half a decade. I've been a published author for half a decade, and that is really cool. And awesome. And I'm looking forward to the future. So I have switched genres, currently, and I'll be switching genres again after, most likely. This September, instead of a fantasy romance, you will be getting a historical epic romance with pirates and another badass who doesn't need magic to be badass, and another great love story. All right, thank you guys. To Elandria, find your inner magic and embrace it, you guys. Bye.